Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here with Oilers Live on a Wednesday, 5 p.m. Some people going home. Some people staying extra, doing the extra long hours at work so they can listen to Oilers Live. And then I don't know what the rest of you are doing, but I've got my co-host Dash here tonight and senior writer for Heavy Hockey Network, Mr. Ryan Lotsberg. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
You can tell the excitement when I just go straight into the show. I mean, we didn't even have any lead in. There's no advertisements, no anything. It's just straight into the show. We're heading to Game 6 Friday evening. Pretty damn pumped. I mean, this is I kind of feel, one of the nice things about doing just a weekly show is you can take some time and prep for it. But there's so much that's going on, right? Like daily, and this series is pretty damn cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped. Like I can't. It's everywhere I go. And I'm not even in Edmonton, so you guys can tell me about that. But like, what's the talk around Edmonton? What was the talk today? I mean, how was that? It had to be just about every conversation you had.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I mean, you felt that way right after Game 5 or Game 4.
Sure,
right?
yeah, I did. But you ask what the talk is, and I think that's it, right? I mean, I don't know. I'll jump in, Lotsy. I like to talk first and talk lots. Hey, this is pretty unfounded, right? I think for those of us that were there in 06. Not one of us probably thought it would be 18 years before we were doing this again. And for the younger generation that weren't around in the 80s and weren't around in that 90s Cup, and maybe we're, just getting out of diapers in 2006, they're enjoying the shit out of this because this is the first time for them. They finally get to see their team. I went to a game with YouTube Trev, and like the exuberance was just glowing. Like it was his first playoff game he'd ever been to in his life. And just absolutely, like starstruck and dumbfounded by the fact of what was going on and what that building is like and how different it is in the playoffs. But, you said this is pretty cool. Yeah, this is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. I'd say like cool is an understatement. But wow, like who knew when Gretzky was talking in the third round that the only thing expected or, predictable about the Oilers playoff run would be the unexpected. All they've done since that series is that, because I'll tell you what, I got my Edmonton Oilers playoff postseason bingo card right in front of me here, and not in one of those squares did I have Skinner being 4-0 on elimination games, nor did I have Skinner outplaying Bobrovsky in games 4 and 5, nor did I have Bouchard breaking Paul Coffey's records, nor did I have McDavid breaking Gretzky's records, nor did I have McDavid getting 8 points and 4 in back-to-back games. Nor did I have Bouchard dropping Ekblad on that reverse hit like a bag of pucks after he got choked and tapped out. Like who had 2 penalty kill shorty goals to start games 4 and 5 on their bingo card? Who had Connor Brown outperforming Draisaitl on their bingo card? It's right here in front of me. I didn't even get to take the cap off my dauber.
Oh man, you brought him up, Connor Brown. I mean, we could spend a whole half hour talking about this guy. Doesn't start the playoffs, but he's going to finish them. Right?
Hard to believe that guy was a healthy scratch, Lotsy?
Oh.
I mean, I was advocating for that in the regular season, and I, for one, am more than happy to eat my words in this situation. Like, I'm not even upset about that performance bonus anymore after what he's done in this series.
No, how could fantastic. You be? Right?
Well, yeah. Steal my thunder from later, but tell me I'm wrong. But Connor Brown has been worth every penny, every dollar this year. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, you mean absolutely. I mean, the biggest question now is without thinking too far ahead, but how do you re-sign him? Right? Like that's which halfway, 90% of the way through the year, we couldn't wait to be done with this contract, right?
People were willing, more than one team was willing to take a shot at him at $3 million a year when he was coming off no season. Now he's going to be coming off this. There's going to be teams lined up to take him at $3 million or whatever he wants. So it's going to be tough for the Oilers to bring him back. I really hate to say it, unless he wants to take a real big hometown discount and, stick around for another $1 million or whatever it's going to be. But
yeah, that regular season performance might still give some general managers pause, but I think he's on the upward swing now. Like, it's clear he's skating a lot better than he was during the regular year. So that's a sign that his injury has progressed nicely, and he's starting to find his scoring touch again. So yeah, who knows? He's certainly earning himself some money for next year based on his play.
He talked about it in an interview. He said he's skating faster than he's ever skated. He can jump higher than he's ever jumped. His cardio is better than it's ever been. What else do you need to know? The performance is there. The results are there, pardon me. Sorry, Michael.
Oh, yeah, no. The results are there. And the other part, though, that I love is just like any interview they do with the guy, like you can tell he's like a hell of a team player, right? Like he's, he's just the kind of guy you want on the team, right? Especially going through a Stanley Cup Finals. We talked about it at the beginning of the Stanley Cup. Everybody talks about who's going to be that next Pisani, right? Mm-hmm. And in terms of like somebody who comes out of the woodwork, nobody picked Connor Brown, right? In fact, I think we joked about it, right? As if. I'm pretty sure we did. And, just to be surprised by this and honestly, who cares what he did in the other rounds anyway, right? Like when it matters, he's kind of, he started the rally. He started the rally for the Oilers. Now, you just hope that they finish it, but he started the rally. He's the guy.
2 games in a row, really. Like he had a big part of that shorty that Janmark scored in game 4.
Oh, that shorty was all brownie.
Right? Yeah. Like, and now he's just a thief on this one. Like, man, have you ever seen a more telegraphed pass? Like, and then that's a big time goal. That's a big time goal. That's the most pressure he's ever felt in his entire career.
Oh,
his entire 100%. Life. That's the most pressure he's ever felt in his entire life right there. And how flippin' easy did he make that look?
Yeah.
Well, you can't score on Bobrovsky and side to side. You can't score low, right, boys?
Well, yeah. Ask any Canucks fan, right? The Oilers are done when they can't score against a 900 plus goalie. Yeah, that's out the window.
Fan.
Yeah. This is it's a tale of like 2 halves so far in this series. But if you had told us we wanted to win 2 both of them at home, right? You don't want to go up to 3, but this is where you wanted to be, right? Going into game 6, going home. You figured at some point, right? Like, the Oilers would win the 2 at home is what we thought. And Florida's, maybe going to win at home, but it's not how the script is this time. But it's going to be a madhouse in Edmonton. It's going to be absolute pandemonium. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like, not even just in the arena, but outside of the arena. Who do they have? Is Shania coming back for game 6 or what's?
I haven't heard anything yet. I've been keeping my eye out on that keenly because I was at game 3. I was at the Our Lady Peace concert beforehand, which was a blast. And it's just another level. Like
I know Oilers fans, they'll find Shania and shackle and drag her back to Edmonton to make sure.
The only thing I can't believe is we still haven't had Los Lobos.
Well, right? Fair enough.
That'd be a good one. Wow. They got one song that we need for sure.
They got the
I know my sister's a big Shania fan. What's that?
Los Lobos has the only song we need.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my sister's a big Shania fan, and she's been praising Shania for getting the comeback started here.
Well, yeah, it was the flasher girl in the Dallas series, and now it's Shania in this series. Whoever we got to get it done, we got to get it done. I want to make a comment on your, a tale of two halves for this series, because honestly, it's every series has been a tale of two halves, boys. Like this is a team that I feel like I'm gonna beat my head against the wall by actually having to say this out loud again. But it's a team that's got to have their back against the wall, and they were down 2-1 against the Kings. Was that what it was? Right, down
it was
against
tied
Dallas.
at 1.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, their only win was game 2, and then we took it from there.
Oh yeah, okay. But down every series since, back against the wall, had to go down 3-0 in the final, and there's splits out there. I meant to bookmark it and I forgot, but Skinner in the first 3 to 4 games of the series, and then Skinner when it counts in elimination games and 5s, 6s, and 7s is 2 completely different stat categories as well. So yeah, I think it's just been that way, right? I think the series have kind of all been just like the season. You get slapped in the face before you punch back.
Yeah, game 4 later, entering the finals, it was 8-1.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean it's remarkable. Just to watch this team, like they've got a couple different speeds, right? Like they've got that speed that they like game 1 and game 3. I contend they got goalie, right? Like they, Bobrovsky was just better than the Oilers. They deserve to lose them. I'll never say, the series should be 3-2. It's right where it should be. Every team won that's supposed to have won each game. Whether you think the Oilers deserve better or not, they deserved what they got. But the Oilers did come out. They came out and they played. They played game 1 and game 3. I thought, as a worthy adversary, somebody that could have won each of those games, right? They could have. They didn't. But they've got that extra level that only a player like Connor McDavid can bring, right? And that's the and brought, yeah, exactly, right. And I, in some ways, I kind of get it because the team asks so much of him, right? Like as a team that he can't do that for 4-7 straight games, right? Like he's got to bring it.
He knows how close
right?
it is.
Yeah.
Now I can count on one hand, right? I'm 4 wins away. I'm 3 wins away. I'm 2 wins away. And his play is just going to elevate and elevate. He might not ever get this close again.
And he's 2 points away from the Stanley Cup Finals record for most points, held by, no big deal, Wayne Gretzky, right? Like 2 points away. And he basically did that. He basically did that in two games, right?
Is he 2 away from Mario and 5 away from Gretzky, something like that?
But he's 13. Gretzky had 13, and he's at 11.
Yeah, Dash, I think you're talking about overall for a playoff run. I think Gretz is at 47, McDavid's at 41 at the end of game 5.
I'm talking in the Stanley Cup Finals.
But yeah, Cup Finals. Yeah, you're right, Michael.
Finals, yeah, it was 13.
Gotcha,
yeah. Granted, I think Gretz did that in 4 games. But if you look at Connor, he might do that in 3 games, right? Like, it's just ridiculous. But there, for all those doubters out there that thought that the Panthers were just going to smoke out the Oilers and make them look like they didn't deserve to be there, I'd argue the Oilers have proven they deserve to be there. Games 1, 3, 4, and 5.
The expected goals for the entire series is weighted in our favor. Pretty much every game except game 2.
It should be that should be what people are talking about, right? In terms of, the discussion in the Dallas series was Dallas depth, right? Like this team, Oilers fans have known for, since game, what was it, 20? Right? Since about game 20, Oilers fans have known the depth and the capability of this team as they traveled throughout the regular season. And people are starting to catch up now, right? Like they saw, they still, though, I think even after game 3, still doubted the Oilers' depth and the Oilers' ability. And now game 4 and 5, and I'll tell you, it's changing the conversation and during the halftime by the analysts, the conversation by the analysts on all the other hockey programs. It's changing. They're starting to realize just how good this team is. And I think, I'll put it right out there again. I didn't know, even for myself, games 1 through 3, I looked at this team and I thought, yeah, they're good, but they're not good enough yet. I've changed. That's changed for me. I've realized that, they are good enough. And
it certainly changed when the third and fourth line decided to go 97% on the penalty kill too.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, when your fourth liners are contributing to basically the backbone of your playoff run, because that's, to me, the penalty kill outside of McDavid has been the MVP. And
it's been the catalyst, right?
Right, and that's McLeod, that's Nuge, that's Hyman, that's
Does their penalty kill have more goals than their power play right now? Or they're equal, aren't they, in the last 2 series?
They outscored them in. Oh no!
No,
we got 4 power play goals last game. We got
maybe
4
after the
power
first
play
period.
goals. Games 5 and 6 against Dallas, we got 4 power play goals, and then this series we got 1 at the tail end of the last game. It was the 5-on-3
scored in bunches, right?
Yeah, we're scoring in bunches. We go cold for a while, and then they start coming all of a sudden.
But special teams is the answer. I mean, 3-0 on special teams last night.
Yeah, I mean that's the Oilers' magic recipe, right? It's hold your own at 5-on-5 and win the special teams battle.
And look, let's talk about this for a little bit because, Dusty, if you guys have been listening to radio today, he's been harping on it. And he was harping on it before the game, and he ended up being right. And talk about momentum. Okay, like momentum, does it matter, right? And momentum doesn't matter in the playoffs. That's what they say. And Tommy had a good one on Oilers on the Oil Stream because he said, maybe it's not momentum that carried forward, but it's confidence. And Bobrovsky didn't carry confidence forward after 8-1. Our team sure did, right? We got all of a sudden 13 goals in 2 games. We got the fourth line scoring, the third line scoring, the PK scoring, McDavid scoring, everybody but Draisaitl. So, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the momentum is sitting in the Oilers' favor right now, 100%. Yeah, and I think it matters. I think it matters in game, and I think it matters outside of the game, and I think it matters. I mean, you brought it up with Bobrovsky, right? Like he's kind of like the elite version of Jack Campbell, right? Like you get in his head, and he wavers a little bit. Now, when he wavers, it's not quite as extreme as maybe Jack Campbell. But he's always been that way, right? Like
always been that way.
Yeah. And so I'd say this is a way, like he's wavering right now. And who wouldn't, when you've got McDavid flying down the wing, you've got guys, coming at him right. Both of the last games in the first 30 seconds, they've had, prime scoring opportunities, right? Like I think I said this after game 1, which is if the Oilers continue to play that way, they'll solve Bobrovsky and it'd be a different series. I just thought that it would be by game 3 they'd have, they'd have solved that little bit, and it wasn't. It took an extra game, but they're playing like they did, like they came out in game 1, and with a little bit more confidence. And I do think 100% momentum matters. I think it matters. In a ton of different ways. I think you see it in the interviews that Tkachuk and everybody's doing. They're, if it had been 4-3 or 3-2 or 2-1 in game 4, maybe they'd be a little bit more confident. But they're not, I don't feel like they're as cocky as they were, right? Like there's a sliver of doubt there. And it's enough to build that momentum, build on that. When they come into Edmonton for game 6, it's going to be absolutely crazy in there, right?
It's like Bobrovsky passed. Sorry, go
You
ahead.
can tell
Ross.
they were real upset about having to come back to Edmonton. Right?
Yeah.
Like momentum is definitely
For sure.
a thing. Like the players aren't going to tell you it is. Like, and any sort of mental game expert is going to tell you one game at a time, moment to moment, shift to shift. But it's hard when it starts piling up on you. Like the last couple of golf matches I've had with some buddies, me and my partner were up 4 holes with 5 goals to go. We lose the match. Now, part of that was they got a lucky bounce on 18, and we gave them a putt somewhere along the way that we shouldn't have given them, but asterisk, whatever. Next time out, same situation, 4 up, 5 to go. Like we almost came back, or they almost came back on us again, but we closed it out this time. But like even my buddy on the other team, when we were going on a 3-4 hole run where we won 3-4 holes in a row, he's like, it is just so demoralizing. And being on the other side of it, when you see them coming back on you, you see them gaining all this momentum, gaining all this confidence. Like they got an extra stride, like an extra little pep in their step, and they're doing things just a little bit faster, and everything's working for them. And it's like, I don't know what I can do to stop this. Right? It's like the mental aspect of it is definitely really like the Panthers can try to hide it all they want, but like that momentum is real tough to stop.
You look at any human behavior where you're pushing yourself to a limit. I don't care if it's the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't care if it's a competition on Big Brother where you got to stand in one spot for 3 hours. You know what I mean? 99% of it's mental. When you get to a point where you all have the same abilities and skills and chance to get that chalice, it's the mental. And you can see that flipping on Florida. You can see that mentality starting to go, uh-oh. Here they come, and here comes. What are you doing on the bench when you see Connor McDavid walk through the entire team and give Corey Perry the easiest goal of his entire career, and he scored a lot of them? You just got to go, we did everything we could. You just can't stop him. So what do you do? Like, that's demoralizing.
Yeah, I've talked about this before with you guys about Burke. You know, he would talk about how the Calgary Flames, when he was over in Calgary, how when they knew Connor McDavid was coming to town, like you could cut the tension with a knife, right? You know, that's how they've got to be feeling in Florida now, when you know Connor McDavid's flying down the wing, right? Like they've thrown everything they can at him. Bennett's, you know, punched him in the face 3 or 4 times, and McDavid laughed him off, and you know, put up 8 points. Right? Yeah. You know, this is Connor McDavid's time. This is this is where he's going to show, you know, and you know what? Whatever the result of game 6, I think, you know, Connor McDavid was making a statement. Right? Like that he can control at least some of the outcome. And there's very few players in the team game that is hockey that can have the kind of control over a game that Connor McDavid has.
Put a team on their back.
And he's done that. Yeah. And you know, I don't want to take away from the rest of the team, but
well, buddy, you got 8 points in 2 games.
Yeah,
take as much as you want away from the rest of the team.
Yeah,
Nuge was -1 in an 8-1 game. Take as much as you want away. Connor McDavid just got 4 points in back-to-back games. Man,
that's a whole other story.
It's like Bobrovsky gave McDavid the cheat code, right? It's like, NBA Jam, like Penny Hardaway is awesome when he scores 7 straight threes and he's on fire and you can score from half. But once you go cold, you know, he's a mere mortal. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Rye Guy asked this question, guys. Do you think Tkachuk guaranteeing a win last game is going to affect him?
Well, affect him what way would be my follow-up question, because, you know, he sure guaranteed a win. Did he? I don't know. Sure, kind of. He's, you know, he said we're going to do it. Fair enough. He came out and played his best game of the playoffs. So that affected him. I think he scored an absolute flippin' snipe goal scorer's goal.
Yeah.
So will it affect him that he guaranteed it and lost, and now we'll have some sort of crushed morale? I don't know. He's a Tkachuk. I don't think they remember what comes out of their mouth 5 minutes after it comes out of their mouth, to be honest. They just go on ruling the
know
world.
what comes out of their mouth.
That's right. Exactly. But I think who it did affect is the Oilers, because why would you give them that bulletin board material, right? They've already got motivation in game 4 to send everybody back home in their chartered plane that the Panthers so nicely arranged for their families. And you know what? Send that plane again on Friday. I hope they do, because it's just more bulletin board material, more motivation to send them right back to Florida again. So that's how I think it's affected things. I don't know if that answers this question or not, though. Lotzie?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, Kachuk, it may have been a motivating factor for him because you said it. He played his best game of the playoffs. He scored a nice goal, added an assist, and he made a great play on the sweeping goal line save on the empty netter right before Connor scored it. So like he was giving it his all in that last game. But I'm not a fan of guaranteeing nothing, right? No. Nothing is guaranteed in this game or in this world. Right. Exactly. So, and that's why, like, Oilers fans right now, yeah, we're coming home to a raucous barn on Friday night, but that guarantees us nothing except a fun hockey game to watch.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, look, I'll be honest. When we went down 3-0, I kind of wrote the series off. And all the Oilers are doing is like dragging me back in, right? And honestly, they've done a great job. I mean, they didn't give up. And I mean, I knew I was going to cheer right to the end. And a part of me, obviously we all hoped that would be game 7. But, if they had lost game 4, I might not have been surprised at that point, right? But honestly, like, why do you do something like that? Like, why does a guy go out there? It's like you said, Lotzie, like, why would you put bulletin board material up when you're playing against, the best player in the world? Right? Why would you do that? You're not Mark Messier, right? Like, you're a pretty damn good player, but you're not Mark Messier. And to me, that's just, yeah, that's the thing. Is it going to affect him? Maybe not. But will it affect the Oilers? Hell yeah. Like, these guys got some pride and they've shown it, right? And they're going to come out with that same pride in game 6, but this time in front of a wild, like, I completely expect Rogers to be like, you might as well bring some earplugs because it's going to be pretty damn loud in there.
Oh, I ain't bringing earplugs on Friday. Screw
yeah,
that.
I ain't taking earplugs.
It's going to be crazy, right? Like,
I want to feel every ounce of it.
Like LaRock said, like, the dressing room's going to shake pre-game, right? And whether you are a professional athlete or not, and LaRock talked about that. Like, they were excited. Like, that's how, like, that excitement motivated them, and that's, professional athlete or not, like, those guys, there's only a few guys that might, have, ice in their veins enough to not have that affect them. But there's a whole, like, 2/3 of that lineup that, is going to affect them either positively or negatively. And I think on the Oilers side, guys like Brown, right, that, I think he lives off of that, right? Like, I think, like, these guys, that's what they want to play for. And it's going to be a hell of a game. And yeah, I think he just screwed up by saying that. Right? Like,
Rashog said it on Got Your Back. He said that both teams are talking about it. Like, both teams are talking about the crowd. I heard at least 2 or 3 different reporters say it's not even close, the atmosphere in Florida versus what they're seeing in Edmonton. Craig Button said he's only seen 2 atmospheres like this ever, and that's Montreal in a game 7 and Edmonton right now. And that's a guy that's not even an Oilers fan saying that. That's, been seeing a lot of finals. Both teams are talking about it. Florida doesn't want to come back here and play, and Edmonton can't wait to. So, like, good on you, Oilers fans. We're making a difference.
Well, and the other piece to this, and lots of you talked about it, was coming back to Edmonton, right? Like, they didn't just not want to come back to Edmonton for a game 6, but they don't want to take that long freaking flight back to Edmonton, right? Edmonton did because they're on the brink, right? So yeah,
Edmonton was coming back to Edmonton anyways.
Yeah,
I mean, they live here. So.
Yeah. So now, like, you got this, the longest flight that you take in your NHL career, you've got it happening, right? They're going back to Edmonton. Like, you can't, like, it's not a 2-hour flight. You feel it, right?
And
like,
let's not underestimate the power of the flight in this series. Like, the Oilers and Dallas played in the conference finals. Dallas isn't exactly a whole lot closer than what Florida is. There, like, that's the southern states. Like, that's not a short trip. So, and the Oilers, they get extended travel all throughout the regular season. Florida, they go a little north-south once in a while, but they're in the Eastern time zone for 3/4 of their year, it feels like. Right? True. So Florida is not used to this kind of travel. They're going to be feeling like the effect of one of these plane rides is going to be harder on Florida than it is on Edmonton. Yeah, Edmonton's had to do more of them, but I think each one's harder on Florida, and especially this one, because Florida's angry about having to get on this plane again.
Yeah. We've got better air traffic control. Right? We've got better air traffic.
Did you hear about the Edmonton air traffic controller that pranked the plane?
Yeah.
I missed this. What happened?
Well, yeah, they were joking with the pilots on the Florida Panthers flight. I'm surprised you haven't heard it, Lotzie. They were saying to the effect of, let's put you in a holding pattern so that you don't have enough fuel and you'll have to redirect your flight outside of Edmonton.
we don't have any runways available. We're going to have to put you in a holding. Of course, because Florida decided to wait to travel, right? Up until the last minute or whatever.
I thought they had to wait because of the storm or something.
Yeah, they were
Maurice made the decision because
they did delay as well.
Okay.
I think that storm happened as a result, but I think Maurice said that they thought it would be better on the team to be able to sleep an extra night at home, and then one of their team trainers or advisors told them that it generally takes a day or two when you hit our altitude for that to take effect, and so that they would delay the taking effects of our altitude until the day after the game instead of during the game, and leaving everything up until the last minute. So anyways, yeah, one of the air traffic controllers was going to reroute them as a joke and then just said, just kidding.
Yeah.
Love it.
Man, it's all good. I mean, there's been a lot of fun little storylines throughout this series. But, hats off to the Florida Panthers. I mean, they came out and they played 3, despite Bobrovsky being outstanding in games 1 and 3. Florida still had to score the goals, and they continued to do it last game. Like, when they get the chances, they're putting the puck in the net. They just don't get as many chances, right?
I'll tell you this: they say the worst lead in hockey is a 2-goal lead. Well, the worst lead in oil country is a 3-goal lead. Right? Yeah. And that's just not this playoffs. That's burnt in PTSD, because if you go back to 2017, that's a 3-goal lead that we blow against the Ducks when Kessler's hanging on the Talbot's pad. Right. And that's also a 3-goal lead we blow against Carolina in 2006 if you go back even further. So, even, of course, we got to go up 3-0, bang, 3-1. 4-1, bang, 4-2, right? Like, we can't keep it. But yeah, you said it, man. And Florida brought it. They did. I'm not even sure that I could truly and purely appreciate how entertaining of a game that we saw last night, because I was just so goddamn bloody nervous every time Florida had the puck. Right? Like, if that's a regular season game, or our ass isn't on the line, or, we're already golfing and we're watching Tampa versus Calgary or something, like, man, that's a hockey game. What a great back and forth hockey battle. But I just don't know if I could truly appreciate it, because it's like my stomach was in guts. My sorry, my gut was in knots every time I.
That just makes it all the better to me, right? Like, yeah, when I'm not invested in the outcome, still it's fun to watch. It's an entertaining hockey game, but the fact that our team is in it and we're pushing, it's like, oh boy, okay, let's go, boys. Like, I was on the edge of my seat all night. I was not comfortable for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it went down to the wire, right? I mean, I've kind of like in the back of my head, I had considered it a loss if the Oilers ended up going to OT, right? That's like the momentum's going Florida's way, but they held on, right? Like, and they actually did, they did amazing. I guess the big question is because the one guy, and we talked about this in the group chat. The one guy that I didn't want to see out there in the last 2 minutes is the guy that you always want to see out there, and it's Draisaitl. I mean, what's going on here? I mean, clearly fighting something. I don't know. I mean, like what? Well, I've just never seen this. Are they on him like more?
No.
Like we've seen him play on one leg, right? So it's just there's a few things, and he made some mental errors too, like in the game, not just injury, could be injury related errors. He's made some mental errors as well.
I've heard what's wrong. We're not insiders at heavy hockey, but we're maybe close enough to a few. And I mean, I'm not going to say it here, and nor would I say anything before the end of the series, but he shouldn't be playing.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, just because there's there's stuff going on, like obviously, like he's not mentally in the game.
Those are Tommy's words from the oil stream. He
Yeah.
shouldn't be playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
We'll find out.
Interesting. Well, we'll find out. Yeah. After the
And
series.
you can see it on his face-offs. You can see he's having a hard time engaging, and what he's got like 20 hits in 23 games in the playoffs. Like you can almost see him avoiding contact at times, right? So,
well, this is typically the type of series that plays into his style, right? Like, I was excited against Florida for that reason, right? Yeah. Like get Bennett and get Tkachuk to get him riled up.
Yeah.
And he
I just don't think he's able to.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's fair. I mean,
we all know what he's capable of. My thought on it is just the way Florida plays. They're so aggressive, especially in their own zone. Like they like to get everybody on the strong side of the ice. They like to just envelop a puck carrier. Like Leon likes to hold on to pucks. And don't get me wrong, he's an amazing puck protector, best backhand passer in the game. But Florida makes it real bloody difficult for anybody to maintain possession for a couple seconds and then to make a good play. Perspective, I don't think this is a great matchup for Leon, but like the way to beat Florida is off the rush, right? And normally Dry can do that too, but he does like to slow the game down, and especially with whatever he's dealing with, like it's clearly impacting his skating and his ability to do all that. So the rush game hasn't been quite as effective for him either.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, I would love if my off game looked anything like or the top of my game looked anything like his off game.
When he looks like he can still go in a straight line, right? Like you'll see when he breaks the zone, he's still carrying certain speed, but without saying too much, like you can see it in face-offs, right? Like watch him. This is not the Leon we're used to in the face-off circle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. But the part that really amazes me is some of the mental errors, like his flyby into the zone at the end of the game last night. Some of the things that, whatever the reason, let's hope that Oilers make it long enough that he can celebrate and talk about how he made it through a series fighting whatever he's fighting. What do you guys think? I mean, with Game 4, I said in the heavy hockey group chat, I said, "Call me crazy," but I'd put in Gags and I'd start Picard for Game 4. Knobloch does it again. He goes his own route. I mean, tell me what you guys think. I mean, Knoblauch's just been like he's done things that I would have told you. I would. He just keeps doing whatever he's going to do, and seemingly he's making the right choices.
He's got his
Thoughts?
finger on the pulse. He clearly has a read, a feel, or an ability to find chemistry between certain abilities, or know that if this guy's got this attribute going tonight, that contributes to this guy's attribute that he's got going tonight, right? And this guy's been really good on the cycle and on the forecheck, and this guy's been all over it around the net. Let's stick those two together, for example, or something like that. But I mean, like, again, I talked about my empty bingo card. I certainly didn't have Henrique, Janmark, and Brown starting the game, or starting every period. I think, actually, if I go back on my notes, right, and then he starts them again this game and starts them again every period, and they contribute to scoring chance like 10 seconds into the game.
Yeah, putting them against Barkov too. Like in game 4, like the forwards from the Oilers that Barkov faced the most were Janmark, Henrique, and Brown. Right, you only got 3 minutes of McDavid, and you got like 6 minutes of the other guys. So
Well,
that
Dash
was a
said
weird
it
change of strategy.
a month ago or so, and I never really realized it till you said it, Dash. But Janmark doesn't make mistakes. Like he is maybe the most solid. He might be one of the most underrated players on the Oilers roster.
He's a perfect hockey player if you don't include offense. It's
Yeah.
like literally if he has a hockey brain and hockey IQ that calculates the risk percentage in every little play he makes, and he bodes on safe every single time. If there's a 2% chance that it goes the other way, he'll do whatever the other 98% thing is. He'll never, no matter how sure he is, or no matter how, and maybe that creates a black hole for people to play with him sometimes, because he's going to, dump it in or bank it off the boards instead of trying to make a pass between the legs. But doing what he does on the penalty kill, man, like, are we going to complain?
No. Well, I mean, the penalty kill's been outstanding. And then, again, Knoblauch figures out the secret for Henrique. In fact, Knoblauch figured out the secret for a contributing third line. Right?
Everybody contributing, really.
Yeah.
Like, look at the time on ice. McDavid had 102 minutes last night, and then everybody else had 17 minutes. Or Bouchard and McDavid, right? Like, this is a team effort, and he's rolling forwards. He's rolling defensemen. Like, I mean, I hated Broberg and Nurse together last night. I'm sure everybody else did. I think Bruce McCurdy said shot attempts with that pair on the ice was 2-25.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't even say that with a straight face.
2-25. First to defend Nurse, but there's been a couple times where he made Broberg look bad. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
It's sad when they're bringing Broberg to that pairing to bring peace to it, right? Yeah. And so Broberg maybe has his worst game of the playoffs, and likely was, and not that it was a bad game, but it was his worst game, and that exposes Nurse.
Yeah, and I don't fully understand it, because there was a good portion of the season where Nurse, arguably was our best defenseman on a lot of nights. I mean, and Ekholm and Bouchard obviously have been steady all season long, but Nurse had some really good stretches this year where was singing his praises, and I just don't get it. Like a couple of the plays he's made in the finals here have been no brainers. I don't get, and I'm the last person to get on Darnell Nurse. Now, having said that, I mean, it's the the Oilers have still strung out 2 wins the last 2 games. So I'll only complain for a little bit, like they say, don't complain after a win. But he certainly he just let's hope that he brings it for game 6, because it's going to get gonna get just tougher, right? As you would expect.
Fan-based podcast here, right? We're just a bunch of marks, and ultimately we don't have a clue what goes on in that dressing room. And I think that there's a ton of value brought by Doc behind closed doors. When you take that core group and you look at their personalities, and we always talk about our backs having to be up against the wall and slap before we punch back. And I mean, look at Connor McDavid. He's a timid person. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the longest tenured Oiler, is a timid person. Draisaitl is pissy, but he's quiet, calm, collected. You know what I mean? Nurse, I think he's like the only guy in that core group that carries fire. And I wouldn't doubt he's going through something this playoffs, physically, whatever. He played with a dislocated hip or torn hip flexor or whatever it was last time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? He hasn't been himself. I think he'd be the first to admit it, other than games 5 and 6 against Dallas. But I want to give credit where it's due, too, because Chris Johnson pointed this out, and I heard it earlier today, that Nurse did something that may have been the momentum and game shifting, I don't know, I guess decision or whatever, right from the bench last game. And it was this, if you guys missed it, when power play 2 comes out on the ice and they're replacing power play 1, the first forward changes for a D, right? Because Bouchard's the only D on the power play 1. So the first forward coming off when they're bringing out PP2 is always a defenseman. Nurse was at the gate. Nurse was at the gate. Nurse noticed Connor flying up the ice and yelled down the bench and said, "Forward, go, forward, go." And Perry jumped because of what Nurse picked up on the ice and saw the, was keen enough, I guess, to see what was developing on the ice, to know that he wasn't going to be able to contribute to that play, changing from his door. And what does Perry do? Steps out and, like I said, scores the easiest of his 400 career goals.
Yeah.
So give Doc credit where it's due. Yeah, he hasn't been his best, but let's just hope that he's carrying us as, in leadership and advice.
Yeah, and I hate to rag on him, because I do, I've consistently defended him, if you at all spend any time listening to the pod. But he's made a couple of key mistakes. They haven't hurt the Oilers in the last 2 games. In fact, having said that, I mean, they haven't, what killed the Oilers in games 1 and 3 was Bobrovsky, right? It wasn't any Nurse mistakes that, granted, he could have been better. Maybe he could have, stopped the one going out front. He'd get that 9 out of 10 times. And I agree with you. And, one of the things that it has done is provided a rallying cry for the Oilers, right? And shown that, the team aspect of this team, right? They all hear it. They all heard it. Connor Brown, we had talked about him earlier. His talk about the team and every interview he does, he just seems like a hell of a teammate, and just openly defending, Darnell Nurse, right? Some of those things, he might not have the best game, but at the same time, it's some of those things get the team rallied up together, and you can only have that if what you say is true, Dash, which is that he's a good guy, that people like him in the dressing room, right? If that's a guy they don't want around, they don't say anything, right? You don't hear anything from the team, but you hear a lot from this team, and they realize, how much, the guy has given the Oilers tons of minutes throughout the years, right? Tons and tons of minutes. He's played with some pretty awful injuries, and he's been there.
Played millions of dollars above his contract value for the first 4 years of bridge deals, right? Anybody would have taken that deal. He was the 7th in Norris voting when he made $3.5 or $4 million or whatever it was, right? Average it out over his career, he's probably still been a bargain.
Lotsie, you follow a lot of the stats and that. Rye Guy asks, what kind of players should be playing with Nurse? I know you've looked at this in depth. You've done some articles on it for Heavy Hockey. Like, when you look at this lineup, the defensive pairings, who would be the guy? And while I ask that question, if you were Knobloch, you had the opportunity, would you change anything going into Game 6? I think I know the answer to that, but let's start with the first question there, Ryan.
Yeah, so the first question, what kind of player should be playing with Nurse? Like, actually I'll give NHL Sid over at Oilers Nation a lot of credit for a lot of the work that he's done over the past 2-3 years here. He's done a lot of work just kind of pairing defensive styles and explaining what would work better with what. Like Nurse's deficiencies, like he gives big gaps at the blue line, so he's not a great rush defender. He struggles to move the puck, right? He's a better transporter of the puck with his legs than he is a passer. And he's not great at puck retrievals. So I think his ideal partner is honestly Evan Bouchard, as much as that's going to give a lot of people nightmares because of neither of them are fantastic D-zone coverage guys. I think their skills actually complement each other nicely. And when they've played with each other in the past, like all the fun puck metrics are usually well in the Oilers' favors because they usually have the puck. They don't spend a lot of time defending. But they tried that in Game 1 against Vancouver this year, and we got blown out, and we never tried it again. And the Ekholm-Bouchard pairing has been spectacular. So like, there's no point in touching that, right? So I actually think Broberg up with Nurse is actually kind of a smart play because Broberg does a lot of things that Nurse doesn't do well. Like Broberg's a fantastic skater, decent spacing on the blue line. He's done pretty well at retrieving pucks, and he's a good puck mover. He also skates it well out of trouble. So I don't mind Broberg and Nurse together at all. One thing I know is it just can't be CC. It can't be Nurse and CC.
Yeah, and I think, and I'd say that ship has sailed, right, by what Knobloch's doing. Your thoughts, Dash?
Yeah, he stole my thunder. I was just going to be a smartass and say not CC. Lots he nailed it. Of course he did. I don't think you want to take Bouchard away from Ekholm. And I know they didn't show it last game. And maybe he's not quite there yet, Broberg. But what Nurse needs is a really quiet Swedish defenseman that's good at defending, right? And Ekholm, sure. I mean, Ekholm's the best one for Nurse if we're going to do that. But I like Ekholm with everybody else, and we shouldn't need Ekholm to protect Nurse.
Ekholm's also not that good in his offside.
Yeah, great point. But I do like that Broberg has the ability to, like, he's an excellent puck transporter, both with his stick and his skates. The quiet part of his game, his ability to close gaps is very good. Maybe not quite as good as Kulak. I'd say he's probably our best. I don't mind Kulak and Nurse together at times. Again, the off wing. I don't know. My answer is Cale Makar. That's who I would like to play with Nurse.
He's not on the roster right now, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Can we make that happen? I took the liberty. You mentioned NHL Sid from Oilers Nation. You can follow him at NHL._Sid on X. Here's the numbers right there. Actually a little bit surprising in terms of he points it out here that that Ekholm and Bouchard played pretty well, but they've been pretty unlucky in terms of on ice goals. That's actually the kind of thing, like when you looked at the PDO for games 1 through 3, right? Like you just had to feel like things were going to turn around. I just didn't think they'd turn around to an 8-1 win. But
you never know when they're going to turn around, though, right? Like it could have turned around next year, right? But it happened to turn around in Game 4.
Yeah.
Knobloch also had that Ekholm-Bouchard pairing almost exclusive with McDavid's line all year, and he's really come away from that in the last few games. kind of giving everybody a chance on the ice with McDavid. So I find like that's contributed to the even ice time, and maybe that contributes to the Echo and Bouchard PDO a little bit too, right? Like when you're used to playing with McDavid every single shift.
Yeah. What do you think of the time on ice here? This is for the, the full.
I think it has to be that way. How else can it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I remember
Bouchard
only a
has just
couple
been
years
dominant.
ago, right? Pre Ekholm, it would have been Nurse up there with 70 minutes through. So it tells you, how big of a difference, which we all knew. We don't need to go into.
2 years ago, Nurse played 60 minutes in a game. So
yeah. So pretty neat.
Bouchard was stapled to the bench.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. First, you know what I want to. We've got about just over a half hour left. I don't think we'll take a break because we've got a couple.
Let's power through. It's the finals, baby. If they can power through, we can power through.
We are a hockey show, so I'm going to talk about some trades that happened today quickly, and then we'll get back to Stanley Cup Finals.
Plural?
Yeah.
Well, there were several today.
Yeah.
Oh, I only heard about Markstrom. Well, this ought to be interesting then.
Yeah. Well,
Let
me just put myself on mute.
Pierre-Luc Dubois is back on the move again in what to me is the oddest of trades, and I'm kind of curious. Goes to Washington for Darcy Kemper. Now,
I'm just loving Dash's facial expressions here.
at what point, like how is that even possible, right? How does that even come to play? Of course, Markstrom goes to New Jersey for big defenseman Ball, right? And Calgary retains 30%. I said in the group chat today, I'm like, this is, the Pacific GMs right now are all going back on, all the mistakes they've made over the past few years. Maybe now's the time to acknowledge the fact that Ken Holland has done a pretty decent deal when we're only 2 games away from the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, how happy are we now that we didn't sign Markstrom that summer, that he chose Calgary instead of us?
Yeah. Well, and look at this. Who scored last game? Connor Brown. Right? Connor Brown scored, right? Exactly. And Corey Perry. Right? Like these are key moves that Ken Holland was able to. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's still up in the air how much Ken Holland has been part of the decision-making process the last half of the season. But they're under his watch.
Connor McDavid, the GM, made brilliant moves bringing in Brown and Knobloch.
That's right. So Dash retweeted a comment I made, which is I can't wait until Ken Holland is advisor for another team, and at every press conference they're going to make fun of him for all the times he says, "Well, my time in Edmonton."
Thinking back to what we did in Edmonton.
Yeah. So, I like, look, Matt Lysick, hopefully I said your name right. He says he's at least been better than every GM since low bar, but he beat it. And yeah, who cares? I mean, it might be a low bar. We've had a couple of odd GMs, but look, at some point you got to acknowledge that the guy has continually got this team better and better year over year.
All we've done is improve.
All we've done is improve. And if the insiders are right, the Oilers are going to re-sign Draisaitl and McDavid.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that talks are already going on with Draisaitl's extension. He just doesn't want it public until after the playoffs, which makes complete sense.
Yeah,
I mean that's just
Sarah Valley kind of blew that one out for them,
right? Like there's, look, I mean, you can talk about the draft lottery all you want, but you still got to put a team around these guys. And if the draft lottery was that important, then they could have put anybody in. But we didn't win with just anybody. We won with the guys that Holland's put in place.
Yeah.
Right. And, he believed that Connor Brown was the right move. And here we are, it took a while, but here we are saying he's worth every penny. And so maybe Ken Holland kind of had a bit of an idea of what he was doing. Maybe he knew what he was doing in Detroit. Who knows? Is that where he was? Detroit? Anybody know for sure?
I don't know. He's never really said.
He's never said, hey, it's kind of a mystery.
Mystery.
I think it was Detroit. I think Jim Nill held his hand there, and assistant GM Connor McDavid held his hand here.
That's right. That's right.
You guys want to do a quick round to tell me I'm wrong, or what?
Yeah, why not? Why not? We got about 25 minutes before they boot us off the air.
No,
if they haven't booted us off the air already, I mean, I don't know. I'm not listening.
They probably have. Maybe it was time to do a reset. I would like to thank Edmonton Sports Talk for Oilerslive and Heavy Hockey being a friend of Edmonton Sports Talk.
That's what we get for driving straight into the show.
Hey, there you go. Right,
That's right. I
Reset.
wasn't ready today.
It's all right.
I mean, but we were online at least. We were live. Like people were able to listen to us. It was. I mean, that's sometimes you just don't know who's listening, if anybody, because I haven't hit the button. All right.
Yeah. So you know what? You guys stole one from me earlier. I can repeat it if you want, but my first one and tops on the list was Connor Brown has been worth every dollar this year. So. Neither one of you are going to tell me I'm wrong, apparently. So maybe let's just say it feels really good to steal somebody else from Toronto that has success here.
Okay. I just as an aside, speaking of Toronto, I watched the game in Toronto downtown last night. And I watched with some boys from Edmonton. There's about 6 of us. A place called the King's Tap, which is a busy little bar down just on King Street. Anyway, yeah, but it's like 3 or 4 floors, lots of TVs, good place to typically watch sports. We're in the heartland of hockey, Canada, and we were the only table in the whole building, in the whole bar that cared about the game. Every time the Oilers scored and we cheered, everybody would look at us like, whoo. And then, I'd hear somebody in the back go, yeah, but hockey's dead in Toronto, I guess. Right now.
This just in, hockey's been dead in Toronto for well over a decade, Michael.
I mean, it's, I was a little bit disappointed. Anyway, all right.
Hockey's been dead in Toronto for over a decade. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
You are wrong. Since 1967, actually.
Since the last team to come back from 3-0 in 1942.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. This one's been hotly contested. I wish I would have put it out there on Twitter because I actually said it to my wife after game 4. And now it's out there and pretty commonly talked about, and I'm starting to believe it, but I did think of it, so of course I believe it. But regardless of who wins the Stanley Cup, Connor McDavid's going to win the Conn Smythe. Tell me I'm wrong.
You want to take that first, Lotzi, or me?
I'm just trying to go through all the possible options in Florida in my head. Like after game 3, it was going to be Bobrovsky. But I think that ship may have sailed after 12 goals against from him in the last 2 games, 15 if you want to go back to game 3. I mean, Connor McDavid is doing some incredible things that haven't been done before. Like he's the only player, the one singular player to record back-to-back multiple 4-point games in a Stanley Cup Finals game. Wayne Gretzky is the only other one to do it twice in the same Cup final. McDavid is the 6th player all time to record multiple 4-point games in his career in a given Stanley Cup final. So, like what we just saw from McDavid in the last 2 games was unprecedented. It was historical. So, yeah, I have a hard time arguing with you on that, Dash.
You know what? I'll argue just because. I think if it comes to the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup and Bobrovsky has a stellar game in order to make it happen, and he stops the only other guy that could get Conn Smythe in the series, he stops him cold, then they'll give it to Bobrovsky, I think. And it would have to be game 6. Otherwise, if it goes 7 and Connor McDavid has another stellar game, which we expect him to in game 6, then I don't care who wins. If he doesn't get it, it would be a travesty, right? But Bobrovsky's got the team, got Florida to where they're at, with the exception of 2 games. And as much as Connor McDavid is doing things we haven't seen since Wayne Gretzky, and then since never, it's still, you still gotta acknowledge the fact that Bobrovsky has done something amazing and has been the most valuable player for Florida. But as I said, I think it has to be a stellar game that he plays to win it. And I think it has to be game 6. I think if this series goes 7, honestly, if McDavid's not accepting the Conn Smythe Trophy, win or lose the Stanley Cup, then the system's broken. Yeah. This is ridiculous to say, but you're both right. And you nailed it, Michael. I think, and that's my statement after game 5. If Bobrovsky pulls off a 50 save shutout, I hand him the Conn Smythe, then it's over. If it goes game 7, we all expect McDavid's going to have another back against the wall Connor McDavid cheat code game. I think it'll be a travesty if he doesn't. Happened twice in history. Hextall in 87, and I think it happened with another forward back in the day, but
J.S. Jaguar in 2003.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was 2 goalies. That's right. Thanks.
Yeah.
But I think it's only happened one other time with a skater or something like that.
Yeah.
That all said, I'm not giving it to Bobrovsky if it goes to game 7. Barkov's been quiet. Taychuk's been quiet. Rodriguez and Conn Smythe. Bennett, Reinhart. I don't know.
Carter Verhaeghe's leading their team in goals in the playoffs. So maybe if he has a big game and puts him over the top.
That's why I left that name till last. You took it off the tip of my tongue. Maybe
Sorry,
he scores a hattie. No, that's perfect. No, it's like, look at chemistry, baby, chemistry. Knobloch put us together. So, I think, you guys are both right, essentially. And that's going to be a really interesting one. The only thing I know for facts is that Connor McDavid doesn't get the Stanley Cup. I guarantee you he doesn't want the Conn Smythe. And that might be one of the most epic photos in hockey history if he wins it in a losing cause, because he will be one grumpy son of a bitch.
I would be.
Yeah, damn right. In fact, I would be grumpy as possible on my face just to show it. Look, if this was pro wrestling, this series, I'd say I'm all for it. Gouge eyes, choke holds. Take it to the 4 count. Use a steel chair. Get your manager to interfere. I don't care. I say it in wrestling commentary all the time. You show me somebody that's not willing to cheat in pro wrestling, and I'll show you a loser. That said, this is hockey. Look, I get diving in soccer, right? That penalty kick, your good player has an 80% chance to score. The what could come out of that dive, a yellow card versus a potential 80% chance to score a goal in a game that usually ends 1-0 anyways, or 1-0. I get it, maybe a little bit. My statement is this: I'd rather not win a Stanley Cup if it means I've got to dive, act, and dive to draw penalties like the Florida Panthers have been doing. Am I wrong?
Controversial for sure. I like your statement. I agree with. Do I think the Panthers have been diving and flopping all over the place? I don't know. I mean, there've been some questionable things. I'm not, and I'm not actually all that upset with the officiating.
No, I'm not saying that.
So, if they were getting away with dives and stuff like that, I think if you're not getting away with them, then you just look stupid, right? Look, they got Kachuk got called for embellishment, right? Like they're, clearly they're watching for it.
Yeah,
So,
I think that was a statement, actually.
Yeah.
We've been, I don't know who I'm stealing. I think what Struddy said or Rashog said, but yeah, or maybe it was Dusty, but we've been keeping an eye on this. We've been watching the video. We're not happy, and we're giving you this, and sometimes I don't love the penalty with the dive call, like simultaneous, because either they dove or they didn't. But sometimes with the hooking and the dive, it makes a little bit of sense because, you had your stick in there. You were hooking them, whether they fell or not, whatever. But I do think that was a statement at a very timely part of that game by the referees there. So, and you know what? Like, we've kind of touched on it too, and I'm just kind of going whatever now. But I feel like that power play waking up, and we talked about the momentum or the confidence coming forward and the lack of confidence in Bobrovsky. I think it's tamed down the Panthers. I think they have a fear in them now that if I take a penalty, these assholes might score.
As they should, right? Like,
as they should.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing what they did in the Vancouver series, and now they're starting to adjust, right? It took them 3 games to do that, but the Bouchard shot, right? Like the little deflection, like that's, those are the adjustments they're making, right?
Yeah.
The only downside, and I think that this has led to the power play is Draisaitl, right? You're not getting the same shot from him, and they know it, right? Like they know it's not coming, so they don't have to play it. And he, he hasn't been as hard on the puck when he gets it. Like typically, as you go through the season, and if Draisaitl gets the puck, there's a guy on him, but Draisaitl's got the puck, so you're not getting it, right?
Yeah.
They've been, it's, but they've obviously noticed that something's there. They're not stupid, and they've been able to play on that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, this one's maybe a no-brainer, but Skinner's now 4-0 with his back against the wall in elimination games in these playoffs, and I don't know, he had a 930 something over the last whatever. Skinner's been the second best Oiler in these finals. Tell me I'm wrong.
Lotsy.
I can't really say that you're wrong. Like, we've gotten contributions from everybody. Like, the counter argument I would make would be Connor Brown. He's been unbelievable in his role in the Cup Finals, where Stu's had a couple of rough nights, whereas Brownie hasn't. Right. But I'm going to say that we shouldn't be talking about a stat about Stuart Skinner when being perfect, when we still have more of these elimination games ahead of us. Right. That's where my head's at. I'm thinking one singular focus at a time, one moment, one shift, one period, one game. Not getting too far ahead of myself here. So, yep, Skinner's 4-0 in elimination games so far. That's a fact, but we park that and we move on to the next game as if everything's 50-50. We need that desperation. We can't lean back on that laurel.
And I think Skinner's in the same mindset as you, right? People are pissed off at him because he wasn't pissed off. He's down 0-2 and he's like, it's just a pleasure to be here. And now all of a sudden you see him last game and he's bobbing his head and dancing to the music. That's where I want my goalie.
Yeah, I did like that. The fact that he was loose and prepared. But here's my take, and you Dash, I know you've been a big fan of Skinner's. I think you're wrong on it. I think that the Oilers have done something that people never gave them credit for, and they've got a full team. Right. And that in some ways that you've argued this, and in other ways, I think that you've been a bigger fan of Skinner than I have. But I would say that the whole team has come together to get the goals against down from what they would be. But I do think I still get nervous. Like the one-on-one, Skinner's not Bobrovsky, right? Like he's just not that. He's not. I would never look at this series, at least so far, and say we had the better goalie, because I don't feel that way. But yeah, he's got to be good enough, right? Does he need to be the second best player on the team? I don't think so. I think I'm happy to say that this team is good enough, has enough depth that they've not got credit for, right? Their PK has been outstanding, and typically you look at a PK and say your best penalty killer has been your goalie, and I would say that's not even the case. The best penalty killers have been the team, right? Like they've all come behind that, and so all of that, I could think of a number of players I'd have ahead of Skinner in terms of playing their best, but Skinner's been good enough, and I loved seeing him bobbing his head to the music last game. Like I think that's exactly what we need, and when he's playing good enough, this team is more than good enough. They'll win every time. Yeah, he doesn't need to be stellar. We don't need Bobrovsky in net to win games. And if the Oilers can miraculously pull this off, was that not like a hell of a story? Like goaltending always wins the cup, right? Is that not a hell of a story that goaltending didn't win it this time? Like the goaltending was just good enough, right? Yeah.
I feel like overlaying our conversation from mid-November here.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's.
But you know what? We're saying the same thing. Like Skinner's calling card has been that he plays to his team's level, right? I think when the team is up and playing great around him, he's great. When the team is falling apart around him, he kind of falls apart, right? And is it a shock that he's undefeated in elimination games? Well, no, because this team plays the best when their back's against the wall. Like, let's just tattoo that on our foreheads, right? So I think there's a linear effect there for sure. Two more.
Okay.
Which one should I go with first here? All right. The Edmonton Oilers, regardless of this year's finish in the Stanley Cup Finals, will be back in next year's finals. Tell me I'm wrong. Lotzie.
I can't. I can't tell you. I don't want to say an actual prediction until after the season, but I really do think that now that we've been here and we've tasted this, I think we've overcome all the demons in the Western Conference, and we know what to do when our backs are against the wall, and we have the horses to do it. Like McDavid, Draisaitl, it's Malkin, Crosby, it's Kane and Taves, right? And then you got Bouchard on the back end. That's your Letang, it's your Doughty, it's your Keith, right? So I think we have all the ingredients to be a real competitive team for a long time here.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I would have, after game 3, I might have said otherwise. Like you got to take your chances when you got them. But wow, I mean, like 2 games has changed my whole outlook on this team. And I think it just took them. I think it took them 3 more games to realize how much they didn't want to lose anymore. Right? I think that was what they needed. They needed those 3 games, and now they've got it. I think more than I've ever thought before that this team has what it takes to get back to the final, and I'm confident they can do it.
Yep, I think that's pretty accurate for sure. I'll stick in a question here. Some stranger, would you put Evander Kane back in the lineup now? Absolutely not. Nope, and 0 chance. Why would you mess with a winning lineup after the last 2 games?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't either. I mean, it's tough to do that now, right? Like, yeah, you would second guess your move. If it backfired, you'd second guess it till maybe forever.
Yeah,
Right.
and Kane was -3 in game 2. We know he's not healthy. He hasn't been taking morning skates all playoffs. He hasn't practiced all playoffs. We know he's been playing with a sports hernia for most of the season. Clearly not 100% and not producing up to his capability. So, yeah, no, I don't want him in the lineup right now.
Yep. All right. My final one in our little segment here is this: no matter what happens in game 6, regardless of the finish, this season has been a success for the Edmonton Oilers. Tell me I'm wrong. Michael?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, it's always kind of been cup or bust. I'll tell you, if they re-sign Draisaitl to an extension, like if that comes out after the Stanley Cup, then I'll feel better. But if they don't, and we go into next season with stuff up in the air, then I'll have a hard time feeling like it's a success, right? Like we said from game 1, it's cup or bust, right? Like it's, the only successful season would be Connor McDavid hoisting the Stanley Cup. And there were reasons for that. And one of them is the Draisaitl contract, right? Like you don't know. That's the part that's up in the air. Am I happy? Damn right I'm happy. We're going into game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, even though that's what I wanted, I don't know that I thought, like when I put my brackets together and I put the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup, I mean, part of me kind of like I do that every year, right? That's like, that's what I'm putting on my bracket. So if the Oilers don't make it out of the first round, I'm wrong, right? But
Yeah.
Look, I don't. If Draisaitl doesn't re-sign, then this was a loss. If he does, then the Oilers will be back, and they'll win a Stanley Cup. Whether it's next year or the year after, they'll win one. We know that they can now. Like this is proof.
Yeah. Well said. Very well said. And God, man, if wherever Draisaitl goes, they'll win a cup. That'll be our fate as Edmonton Oilers fans who watch.
That would hurt.
But yeah, it's hard to kind of hinge it on that, but I get where you're coming from. And, I mean, I guess what you're ultimately saying, if I'm reading between the lines, is, if we lose this game and that's the reason Draisaitl leaves, then this season was a failure.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if Draisaitl has already got it in his mind that he wants to go play with Pasta in Boston, then I guess it didn't matter. And I guess it's still a success because, the rest of the team got a taste of it, and Daryl Cates made $1.5 million at every home game.
Yeah.
At least. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We got, I don't know, 7 minutes left in the show here. I don't know how you guys want to finish it off, but
well, I don't think you haven't said whether you think it's a success.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just down here chilling, It's
My bad.
No, I mean, part of me is like cup or bust. Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last, right? But I mean, talking about the Leon Draisaitl contract extension, he wants to win more than anything, and I have never once thought that either Leon or Connor will leave. Like, I think they're signing their next contracts here. I'm not worried about that at all, regardless of the result of this series. Even if we had lost in the first round, I wouldn't have been worried about that. So I'm not super stressed about that. But I think even if we lose in the Cup Finals right now, I think they're gonna be like sharks with the taste of blood in their mouths. They've just had a taste of what this is. They have had a taste of what Rogers Place is like, what the city of Edmonton is like in a Cup Finals, and I think you can see that they love this city and they love this team. They love being here. It's like I don't know how they would leave, but is the season a success? Ultimately, no. But from a fan perspective, it's the second most possible successful season you could have.
Yeah, I just want to tack onto that. It's probably more likely Draisaitl wouldn't sign here if the Oilers win the Cup than the other way around. Like, he's still got something to prove if they don't win, right? And I think that matters to him. and to Connor McDavid, right? Like they hear the whispers, right? Like they know. Whereas if they win the cup, they've done what they set out to do, and then he can go, he can be happy and go play someplace else. I think it's probably more likely he doesn't re-sign if the Oilers win the cup.
Well, and that would be the biggest testament to, or like the biggest indicator of how much they really love this city and this team. They win one and then decide, okay, other challengers are coming, or do they want to pile on Stanley Cups here, right? Do you want to win 2, 3, 4, 5 Stanley Cups here?
We want it. We want it, Lotzi. We want it. We heard it here. Yeah.
I think if you're chasing legacy, you stay as Oilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much as simple as that. And I think legacy is important to both these players ultimately. I don't know. Yeah. One last quick question for both of you, but how do you think it felt like being Barry Zito's water bottle? Or Chuck Zito, whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah. Zito. That was awesome. That was great. And he had every right to be pissed. Yeah. Lotzi?
Yeah, I mean, that couldn't have been fun to be that water bottle. Like, there was a big online argument about that situation today. People were making some claims about Zito being an abuser because of his reaction in that situation. I mean, we have no prior context on Zito as a person. I've never seen any sort of report about any sort of assault or abuse situation with Zito, and I think it's a real long stretch to go from him throwing a water bottle in disgust because his team lost Game 5 of a cup finals where they had a chance to clinch a cup on home ice. Now they got to fly back to Edmonton and play a game at Rogers Place. Like, your team just lost a cup finals game and you're mad you throw a water bottle, and nobody else was around, right? There were people in the frame, but like he gave the old look around to see if anyone was there, and there wasn't. There's nobody between him and the wall. He's not the first general manager to throw a water bottle in the box after a tough loss, and he won't be the last. So I think it's much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
Kane's throwing a water bottle. Taylor Hall's throwing a water bottle. Hey, whatever. Yeah, you know what? If I was watching a game with Michael Hebert and we're in the box together and our team lost, I would fully expect him to grab me and throw me against the wall.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I think the fact that it's a water bottle is just, it's probably a good thing. I don't know. Yeah, guys, that's it for me. I do like the idea of finishing it off with a prediction if you guys want to do that, or I don't know if you want to talk about when we're back on the air, because if it's Game 7, that'll be Wednesday. So I don't know. Maybe we say Tuesday no matter what.
Yeah, let me go first on the prediction, because I wouldn't bet on this game. Let's just put it that way. It's a big game. It's a big game for both teams. I'm going to opt out of predictions because I typically it's bad news and you know who I'm going to predict. So I'm just going to opt out of it and say I do expect, though, one thing, which is Connor McDavid's going to be outstanding. And we're going to see primetime Connor McDavid, and whoever the Yahoo is in Florida that said he's overrated. Like, come on, buddy. Watch some hockey before you start talking. All right.
Barkov's the one that's overrated.
Yeah.
My prediction is that both teams are going to have fun. Both teams are going to play a high level of hockey. Rogers Place is going to be loud and electric. It's going to be a crowd that's going to rival few that have preceded it. But I'm with you, Michael. I'm not in the prediction business in this series. I'm just happy that we have another game to watch in this series. And I'm in the mentality of taking it one moment, one shift, one period, one game at a time, one thing at a time. That's all you can focus on. Control what you can control. Stay in the moment.
I didn't ask you guys to name streets after Oilers.
Well, you might as well have.
Even though the end day would be McLeod because he's always on the perimeter. But that said, my prediction, because you guys are chicken shits, is 5-3 Oilers, Game 6. See you at Game 7, Wednesday, Sunrise, Florida. Oilers take that game 2-0.
All right.
You're right.
There we go. All right, guys. It's been a good one from everybody here at Heavy Hockey Network. Make sure you check out heavyhockey.com. Lotsy's got lots of great articles going up on the daily, as well as some of the other guys. Game 6, Oilers versus Florida Panthers in Edmonton. Goes, hey, Merlin there is excited about it. Goes Friday at 9 Eastern, 6 Mountain, if I'm not mistaken. Or 8, yeah. Is that right? 8 Eastern.
8
5
Eastern, 6 Mountain. Yep.
8 Eastern, 6 Mountain. 9 Atlantic time for those of us on a barge in the Atlantic Ocean. All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll see you next week, hopefully with something really exciting to talk about. You'll see.
Oilers Live.